Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Bradford series. Bradford is a hugely important city in West Yorkshire. A lot of it is unparished, but there are 20 of them here, so let's dive into one of them today. Welcome back to Bradford, everybody. Now, unlike Haworth, which you saw last time out, this place is a bit flatter. It does have some hills, but thankfully not as many as Haworth did, so this should be a bit easier to walk around. Even so, it's still a very interesting place with a lot to talk about. And here we're going to see another station on the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway. This is Oxenhope. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Today in Bradford, we're in Bronte country again. This is the parish of Oxenhope, which lies just to the south of Haworth. It has minor links to the Bronte family, but here it's all about the railway. And when I say that, I mean it, because without the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway, which we met back in Haworth, Oxenhope wouldn't exist, or at least not in the same form as we know it today. Oxenhope derives from the Old English word hop, which means valley head, so this is literally Oxen Valley Head. Like many places in Bradford, it was heavily industrialised in the 19th century. The modern village encompasses what was originally a collection of separate, smaller settlements: Uppertown, Lowertown, Leeming, Horkinstone, Marsh and Shaw. The area only became known as Oxenhope when the railway company named Oxenhope Station in 1867. It referred to a small settlement between Marsh and Haworth. Originally, the railway was designed to terminate at Haworth, but thanks to the owners of Lowertown Mill, it was extended. This decision would greatly alter the street pattern of the village. Above the main village in Leeming is a huge reservoir, not built to supply water to Keighley, but rather to power the mills, and Oxenhope had plenty of them in its time. In short, it's famed for mills, railways, and even a straw race. This is Oxenhope. Our route starts on Best Lane, a central street between the main A6033 Hebden Bridge Road and the Lowertown area, perhaps Oxenhope's most important. Our first landmark is the Bay Horse pub. This has a pleasant single bar setup with a cosy room to the rear and a separate dining area up a flight of steps. It hosts a weekly quiz night, 2 music nights, and is one of the stops for the hugely popular annual Oxenhope Straw Race. More on that later. Next, we've got a bus stop. Here you can catch the B3 service which runs to Hebden Bridge, as well as the K14 to Keighley. This part of Oxenhope, by the way, is known as Uppertown. This building is an old library which dates from 1907. It's now a 4-bedroomed house. As the road starts to bend to the left, you'll see a house with this postbox on its wall. It's another Victorian one. We're seeing quite a few of these now, aren't we? You know, it's funny, I never used to take much notice of post boxes until I found that one in Searby way back in West Lindsey, and ever since I've been looking to see exactly which era they come from. I found more Victorian ones than I thought existed, but there you go. Right, so what we're doing here is we're heading up this sort of gentle hill. This is Hebden Bridge Road. As you can see, there's a couple of terrace side streets off it. At the top of the hill, you're going to find Oxenhope's church, which is right there. Let's head for that. Just off Hebden Bridge Road is the parish church of St Mary the Virgin, a 19th century building which was founded by the Reverend Joseph Brett Grant. Grant did this at the behest of the Reverend Patrick Bronte, who we talked about in Haworth, and tirelessly collected money to fund its construction. Charlotte Bronte even recorded that he wore out some 80 pairs of shoes in his quest to do so. The foundation stones of the church were eventually laid down in 1849. The church stands on a hill, and look at this view from the rear of it. Those views are only going to get better, by the way, the further we go into this episode. The church was open, so I went inside for a little look around. Check out this amazing chancel arch. The attention to detail on this is quite spectacular. St Mary's also has some lovely stained glass, including some by the William Morris Company. I found something interesting about the chancel floor in here too. So not all the lights appear to be working in here, unless I'm just doing it wrong, but I can only seem to make those two lights come on for some reason. So it's a bit dark in here, but you know, there is a bit of natural light. Now here in the chancel, there's a marble floor, which is something I noticed virtually straight away. Isn't this magnificent? There's a plaque on the wall here which tells us about it. It says that Tom Walker Crabtree, it's in loving memory of Tom Walker Crabtree. This marble floor was given by his brothers Greenwood and Walter and his sister Sarah Elizabeth. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it. It's not often you see a floor like this. It's brilliant. So what else have we got in this church? Well, we've got an organ, which is also here in the chancel. This arch says, "We praise thee, O God." And I don't know whether you noticed, but there's also another arch here, this chancel arch, which I recorded a moment ago. These fabulous tiles set into it. And there's something written on this as well. It says, "Glory to," I can't quite see this, "Glory to God," something. I can't read the rest of it. It's probably because the light's not very good. But yeah, that's the chancel. And then you've obviously got the north aisle on this side, and then at the back you have what looks fairly modern. Actually, looks like it's a church that's had some recent additions. Even this glass door is fairly modern as well. It's an old church with some very modern bits and bobs inside it. It's nice though. It's nice and quiet. It's not very big, so it's not very echoey, so it feels warm and cozy. Even though it's sort of 3 degrees outside. Speaking of outside, we're done in here now, so let's head back out of the glass door and see what else Oxenhope has got. Almost opposite the church, there's a footpath which runs down towards Lowertown. It was muddy, but well worth it for this scenery. You see, Oxenhope lies in a north-facing Pennine Valley, around 650 feet above sea level at its centre, and up to 1,450 feet on its southern moors. I said it in Haworth, but I'll say it again, there's absolutely no wonder why the Brontes loved this part of the country. It is just simply breathtaking. Weirdly, the views actually got a bit better the further downhill I went, which was a bit odd. We're now on Hill House Lane, which is a gentle downward slope. Hill House Lane ends at the junction of Best Lane and Lowertown. We're heading for the oldest part of Oxenhope, which centuries ago would have been a collection of farms and cottage clusters. Nowadays, Lowertown has Oxenhope's biggest and most important landmark. That would be a mill, which dominates this whole area. In kind of a weird way, the view got better the more I came down the hill. That's very unusual. I'm just going to wait for this van to move out of the way because I want to talk about the building that's behind it. There we go. Now, Oxenhope had plenty of mills plenty of centuries ago. Here's one of them, mill building right here. Let's talk a bit about them. This is the former Lowertown mill, which is now a block of apartments. It's down to the owners of this mill that Oxenhope exists as it does today. They persuaded the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway to extend their line from Haworth in order to serve both this mill and plenty of others as well. Unsurprisingly, the goods produced here were cloth and wool, much like Haworth, only here there were way more mills. By 1850, there were over 20 of them in this valley. They were water-powered, fed by the massive Leeming reservoir, which was built between 1872 and 1873, the construction of which ironically meant 2 mills had to be demolished. And here's a watercourse which would have provided that power. This stream, which we're about to follow, is called Leeming Water. It runs under Station Road, and the bridge that crosses it was actually built by the railway company. I'll explain why in the next section. It's quite a story. And you know, it doesn't matter how old a mill is or whether it's been converted into apartments or anything like that, but they still look quite impressive. I actually like seeing the chimneys rising up into the sky. Fred Dibner would have loved it. Wonder whether he worked on that one. Anyway, now we're going to head up Station Road. This is a long drag now past quite a few bits and bobs, including the main shop here in Oxenhope, and eventually we'll head towards the station. With a few references to weaving around it, this is Station Road, effectively Oxenhope's main street these days, containing, as it does, plenty of village amenities. These include the village's main shop, which is this co-op store that also doubles as the post office. There's also a few smaller businesses as well. Take, for example, this beauty salon called the Green Room, which is over the road. All of these businesses and buildings could not have existed without the railway. That's because the owners of Lowertown Mill originally wanted the railway line to extend as far as the mill. This was not possible due to the gradients involved. As a compromise, Station Road was built as a direct link between the mill and the station, hence why the bridge over Leeming Water is built like a railway bridge. I have to admit I found that whole story truly fascinating during research for this one. We've now hit West Drive, and it's time to go into a little park. Okay, so we've reached West Drive, and there's a park where it meets Station Road. This little park just here. Looks like there's a few bits and bobs to talk about. There seems to be a parish notice board over there, or at least what I think is a parish notice board, because I've got me, obviously it's got its back to us, so I can't tell you exactly what it is, but we'll find out in a moment. There's a little display in the middle here. There's a plaque on there. I wonder what that's all about. Let's have a wander across. So this is Village Visions by Thomas Clayton. And it says number 5 on it, so there might be another 4 of those somewhere. Don't know. We'll soon find out. This is the Oxenhope Rose Garden, built on a patch of land known as Muffin Corner. The land was donated to the former Keighley Borough Council in 1968 by a local family called the Greenwoods. By 1972 it was completed, and it featured 12 cherry trees when it was opened. There's a map in here which shows you everything in and around Oxenhope Parish. We won't be seeing all of this, but there's a few bits on here which are coming up. There's a parish notice board in here as well. This is the board I was referring to a moment ago. Mark off Oxenhope, folks. Bradford is down to 15. A walk up West Drive then brings us to Oxenhope's Methodist Chapel. There used to be a Baptist church in Oxenhope too, but in 2012 it was put up for sale. It was then featured on the Channel 4 TV show The Restoration Man in 2016. Back on Hebden Bridge Road now, we have the village's primary school. Now, not far away from here is something that's not on my route, but it is definitely worth a mention, and that is the Manolands Hospice. And you'll find that if you go this way from this roundabout at the Rose Garden and up a little hill. It's sort of where those trees are. I think it's worthy of its own special section. So that's what today's special section is. Up the hill and to the right you'll come across Manolands Hospice, which is run by the Sue Ryder Care charity. It supports people with life-limiting conditions. The charity relies on public donations to maintain its services. In 2020 though, Manolands was threatened with closure thanks to a lack of income which dried up due to COVID-19. It was though saved thanks to a fabulous outpouring of support from the local community. However, it is still feeling the effects of the pandemic. Manolands was originally the family home of Monica Vesti and her husband Gordon, who gave it to the charity in 1974. The same year, its first patients were admitted. Monica Vesti remained supportive of the home throughout, even donating Woodhousegate Cottage and garages in memory of Gordon in 1996. Vesti spent the last 3 years of her life at Herncliffe Care Home in Keighley, passing away in 2013 at the age of 96. Forever an Oxenhope hero. Next we walk through the Millennium Green, which features Leeming water again, gradually cascading its way down a waterfall on its way to Bridge House Beck. The land this is built on was purchased to celebrate the Millennium by the residents of Oxenhope with funding from the Countryside Agency, the Millennium Commission and some other donors. I found a board in here which tells you a bit about a sculpture trail, one of which is the Village Visions piece we saw in the Rose Garden. There's 6 in total. And exiting the green, we head for Oxenhope Station, which is the southern terminus of the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway. The station is located at around 660 feet above sea level, and it features a Heritage Lottery Fund supported exhibition shed containing locomotives and carriages not currently in use. It explains their history and that of the line as a whole. This is also the site of the line's carriage and wagon maintenance department, which is not open to the public. Now, one thing I noticed straight away when I came down towards this station is this structure here. I wonder how many of you know what that is. I do. It's a water tower, and obviously with steam trains running along the line, they need to take on water, because if they're steam powered, that's what boils to generate the steam to make them move. And of course they do need to refill, of course. So yeah, I don't think I've ever seen one of those before by the side of a railway line. Nice place to have one, actually. Makes sense because it's the end of the line. You know, good place to fill up while it's getting ready to go back the other way. And there are a few train carriages down here as well. I know we saw a couple in Haworth, but there's a few more down here. Let's go and have a look at these. I know the railway enthusiasts out there will be happy to see these. Got a couple over here and a couple over there. That one at the back, by the way, that's a mail coach. I spent far too many years in my youth watching train related stuff. I know exactly what that is. It's great to see these. I mean, obviously most trains these days are kind of boring in a way, aren't they? The trains that we sort of ride on these days, they don't seem as classy as this kind of stuff, do they? It's great that this is preserved. So let's see if we can get onto the platform. I don't think this station is open at the moment, which is a bit disappointing, but we'll see if we can get onto the platform and have a look down the line, as it were. Is this gate open? No, it's not. It's locked, so I won't be able to get onto the platform. But it runs to Haworth. Haworth is that way, and eventually goes to Keighley. There's a map of the route here. So we're here, look, and you can see Oxenhope Station has an exhibition shed. It's got a few facilities as well. There's a shop, toilets, a buffet, obviously the car park, picnic area, a viewing area, which is number 6. Not quite sure where that viewing area is, but never mind. Number 12, which is the exhibition shed. And then obviously we saw that Haworth Station. Between Haworth and Outworth you've got the Mytholms Tunnel and the Mytholms Viaduct, and then it goes through to Damham's Ingro West and eventually ends up in Keighley. This is the last part of the walk, which takes us to Oxenhope's sports area. On the way, we pass the allotments, which I know some of you will like. You know who you are. This area features a playground, a cricket pitch, a bowls green, tennis courts and several football pitches, one of which is used by the local football team. Oxenhope Recreation Football Club play in Division 1 of the West Yorkshire League, which sits at level 12 of the English Football League system. Here's the bowling club, which caters for players of all abilities and ages and welcomes new players, both experienced and novices. The green is a 40-yard square. The playground is a decent size and, in my opinion, very handily situated, given the primary school backs onto this area. And the sports area also features Oxenhope's community centre. Effectively the village hall, this can be hired out for private functions. So here's the cricket club, as you can see. Just put the camera through this gap here so you can get a good look at the pitch. There we go. How about that for a backdrop, by the way? Hills in the background. I wouldn't mind playing cricket on this pitch. You get a great view in the summer. And this has also got a nice little set of nets as well. Proper nets, these. Look at this. Rate professional. Said that in proper Rate Yorkshire accent, didn't I? Okay, that's pretty much the sports area, and we'll head up here, up this way to Shaw Lane, which will take us back to the beginning. And that's Oxenhope, but we're not quite finished with this episode just yet, because there's a part of Oxenhope which I'm going to drive around, and that of course is Leeming, which I mentioned earlier. So let's head back to the car, hop in it and drive down to Leeming. You'll have to excuse the water on the windscreen in this bit. What you're actually seeing is mist, not rain, and I could see perfectly well to drive. However, it seems that the camera picks up the small droplets of water a little differently, and so it looks like a torrential downpour. We're driving up towards Leeming via Denholm Road. This is where you get a true idea of how much of a valley Oxenhope sits in. The road is steep, quite narrow in places, and it has quite a few spots along it where traffic flow is prioritised. At the top of the hill is Leeming Reservoir. Leeming Reservoir is quite impressive. We'll make a stop at it shortly. Our first destination though is a pub called the Lamb Inn. The Lamb Inn stands almost next to the reservoir on the corner of Back Leeming, another narrow mountain-like road. It serves food daily apart from on Wednesdays, although its real forte is its Sunday roasts, well worth calling in for if you're ever in the area. The pub is one of 5 which take part in the annual Oxenhope Straw Race. As we leave Oxenhope behind in a moment and drive through Leeming, I'll tell you a bit more about the Straw Race. It's quite the event by all accounts. Now, of course, by far and away the biggest landmark in Leeming is the reservoir, and here it is. It's a bit misty at the moment, so you probably can see a load of mist on the camera, probably fogging up the lens, but isn't that just brilliant? The reservoir is just really still, just like the one we saw in the Haworth episode. I'd say, not totally sure, that this is a bit bigger than Lower Lathe Reservoir. I don't know, but yeah. Seeing as we're about to cross some countryside now, I can tell you a bit about life before the textile industry out here. Despite the popular impression that the Pennines are sheep country, it may come as a surprise to learn that the Oxenhope uplands were populated mainly by cattle farms, although there were some sheep farms as well. These farms have now dwindled, mainly due to the Bovine Tuberculosis Act in the early 20th century, which banned the keeping of cattle on drinking water catchment areas. And finally, the straw race. Here's a bit more about it. The basic rules are simple, but they sound a little daunting if I'm honest. 2 people or a team carry a bale of straw that weighs 20 kilograms to each of the 5 pubs in the Oxenhope area, drinking a pint of beer in each as they go. Many participants wear fancy dress. Most of the route is either downhill or flat, but the last stretch of the race is the hardest. It follows this road towards the finishing line at the last pub. That pub is the Dog and Gun, a 17th century coaching inn which has been run by the Roper family since 1994. It's a 1.5 mile uphill climb all the way through Leeming. The scenery around here is amazing, so it's worth visiting even if the straw race is not your thing. It sounds like fun, but I don't know if I'd do it. It takes place in July, by the way. Anyway, from here, I'm off to make my way across the moors to the next one here in Bradford. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and this has been the Parish of Oxenhope, and I'm out.